I shipped them over to where the pig farm was, so I could feed the piggies. I never used up that 70,000 litres of stuff, of beets before I finished the playing on that map. But yeah, that was a pain. However, if you want to do pigs, yeah, I'll do sugarcane, sugar beets, because it's at least not as bad as doing potatoes. You don't have to do a big field, you could just do a small patch, and that's enough to be going on with. I don't do pigs very often, primarily because of sugar beets and or potatoes. But it's one of the reasons why most people who play the game will recommend doing soybeans, because you get so few off the field, but they're worth so much money. So, yes, God of Thunder, this is Marwell Manor. Okay, that's there. Let's get this thing running again. To be honest, I'm not sure how orchards would work. I mean, we had those mod fruit trees added to the game. When was that? Farm Sim 17, and they worked just like the greenhouses. They needed water, they needed manure, and they produced a daily income. I'm not sure how an orchard harvest would work. Oh, now there is one advantage to doing sugar beets and or potatoes. If you're playing with seasons, with a wet geo where you're getting rained out over the fall, you can harvest beets and potatoes when it's raining. You can't harvest cereals and grains. I tested that out one year on Lawfolds. I planted some sugar beets, and I think I ended up with a lot of the fall period raining. I managed to get most of the grains done, or I managed to get all of the grains done between rain showers. I still had the beets to do, and so I'd heard rumours that you could, so I tried it, and yes, you can. Helper A has full grain tank. Yes, of course you do. And of course your the pipe's on the wrong side. I guess we've not done too badly with how we're progressing. We'll obviously be able to tell how well we've done when we get around to having enough time to sell the grain. That's going to be tricky. I could always hope that the Fent doesn't have too much trouble with this trailer. So then I can use the John Deere to work the two fields. I'd love to know the reasoning why I selected the John Deere tractor but the Massey Ferguson harvester. Oh, okay, God of Thunder. Oh yeah, good job on the Michigan map yesterday. I logged in there today to have a look. Chickens needed cleaning up. Their production rate was at 0%. But everything else looked good. I paid down some of the loan. And that's kind of what I want to do for the next 2 or 3 harvests. We might look at either buying field 2 or field 22 and 23, which are nearby to our yard. A bit. So close. Yes, I am. Osei is actually a randomly generated name by Sony Online Entertainment. The time I played Star Wars Galaxies, and I used a different name for most of my characters, as at least the main character. My main character in Star Wars Galaxies was a droid engineer. Didn't have much in the way of combat skills, so I decided to create a combat character, Sulastran. Ended up qualifying as a Jedi, but then they screwed the game up and I quit. And I don't know what to call a Sulastran, so I had it randomly pick a name and it came up with Osei. And because it was my combat character in that game and the team did a lot of combat, I tended to get known as Osei rather than my crafting character's name. So at that point I kind of changed my name across the board to Osei. and I would say it's suitably different from anything anybody else comes up with. So I haven't seen anybody else with a name anywhere close to being the same. You go into some games and there's Bob 372. So, yeah, great. Or was it 373? I can't remember. Yeah, we're having problems with the telephone poles. Still going to have to tidy this field up quite substantially. Oops. The time. It's only 9:30. I am getting really tired. It's kind of odd because we haven't had the kids this week, so strip along the top. Does he use the standard in-game equipment or mods? I know, I mean, some of the bale fork, the in-game bale fork, not easy to stack stuff. But the ones which I think they are available now. This one's okay. Using forks like this makes it very easy to stack square bales, and those prongs means they don't slide around. So you grab a square bale, you plonk it on another one, you plonk it on another one, and then you scoop up the bottom one and engage those spikes, and that's a stack of bales that's not going to shift. You can... I haven't tried it yet, I must admit, but I did notice this thing's available, which will stack 3 square bales, one on top of the other. So if you run around a field with one of those stacking 3 bales straight, you can then run in with either of those and just pick up the stack of 3 and plonk it on top of a trailer. Round bales aren't quite as easy. Although I was watching Farmer Klein messing around with some round bales, and he was picking up 2 at a time with his bale fork, prong through the middle of each one and stacking them on the edge, like these are on the field, on the back of a trailer, and 2 rows down the length of the trailer, and he did very well on it. So it really, I think what it takes is a practice. Back in Farm Sim 17, I used to be able to... Oh, you're empty. Okay. I used to be fairly good at stacking bales, and I went on to one multiplayer server, and unfortunately, the game was all messed up in 17 for multiplayer. The admin wasn't there, and I went into the game. There was someone else there, and I'd harvested field of wheat or barley, and so I went out. I baled them all up with the round baler with a square baler, and using the in-game bale, front loader bale spike thing, I stacked all of them on the back of a trailer. Once I'd finished stacking them, I figured, it's 11 o'clock at night, I need to go to sleep. So I went to bed. And I came back, and all of the bales were... the game had saved before I'd started stacking the bales on the trailer. And so I was sort of, okay, I'll stack the bales again. So I went around the field, collected all the bales, stacked them on the back of the trailer. I logged out because it was sort of, I'm done for the night. And the next day I went back into the game, and only half the bales that I'd stacked the previous day was on the trailer because the game had saved when I'd done half the job. And at that point I just said, to heck with this, I'm not going to bother anymore. But I did get fairly good at stacking bales, but obviously after 6 to 9 months of manually stacking bales on trailers, and someone comes out with an auto load script, you kind of go, I know how to do that. I've proven my worth stacking bales. I'm going to use an auto load trailer because it's quicker. And then you come back to something like Farm Sim 19 where there aren't any auto load scripts yet, and your choice is either stack them manually or get a bale loading trailer. And so I'm going to get a baling loader trailer this time, because I really don't feel like stacking however many bales we have on this field so far, plus all the grass ones that we're going to be making soon. There we go. Okay. Oh, did I not unload you? Okay. Let's try that again. We'll try and make full bales, and if we get to a point where I don't think there's enough straw on the ground to make a full bale, I'm not going to start making them another one, because I want all the stuff we get on the grass field to either be grass or hay, and getting an extra straw bale. So that's one of the changes between Farm Sim 17 and 19. In Farm Sim 17, let's go to the end of this row and let's create an example. So I get to the end of this row and we say, okay, this is the last of the straw on this field, and I'm now done, and I've got 1,500 litres of straw in the baler. Put the baler away because there's nothing else to do. A couple of days later I cut a field of grass and I go out and start baling the grass. As soon as I put 1 litre of grass in this baler, the content would change to grass. Which, kind of handy. Now with Farm Sim 19, the content doesn't change. So if I go and bale a field of grass, the first bale out, because I have 1,500 litres of straw in the baler, the first bale out is going to be straw. It does not change the content of your baler. So what the heck's going on here? How on earth did I get a triangle? Huh. Oh, that one. That is weird. It would appear that workers are far smarter than they used to be. It used to be either 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees per the map compass. So what angle are we driving at the moment? We're driving at 348.8 degrees, which is something that a helper on Farm Sim 17 could not do. Yes, I would like the truck I use on Lawfolds. It was converted over by Andy from GTX Mods, and he quit the GTX team just after releasing it. So I had use of it from quite early on because I followed the GTX Mod website. They did a very nice storage barn in which you could store almost everything. You could put wood chips in it, beets, potatoes, grass, hay, straw, silage, TMR. So I would brew up silage in a bunker and then unload the bunker into the storage shed, and put straw in there, put grass in there, and when I need, or hay in there, and when I needed to mix up some TMR, I'd mix it up what I call by hand, basically just close mix. So where people would do 4,000 litre, 2 bales of hay, 1 bale of straw, 1 bale of silage, I'm looking at that and saying, okay, it's approximately 6,000 litres of 6,000 litres of hay and silage, and approximately 4,000 litres of straw. And I would mix that with a shovel. And then once the TMR wagon was full, I'd reverse it back into the storage shed and empty it into the storage shed. So keeping the cows fed was really easy. And every so often I'd mix a half a dozen wagons of TMR and just unload it into the shed and then use that for a few days to feed the cows. I wasn't constantly mixing the TMR and using it directly from the wagon. Very nice mod, that one. But I'd been using that for a while, and then they brought out the AR frame, Initially there was a problem with the flatbed, and the bales would shake around and eventually fall off. So I reported that. They said, yeah, we're aware of that, we're fixing it. And they released the final versions of everything, and then he quit the team and he released them directly to the Giants mod hub, but not quite the same version. So there were two versions of the AR frame pack in Farm Sim 17, the one you could download from GTX mods and the one you could get off the Giants mod hub. But I mean, part of the reason I liked using it was for specifically for maps like this, where the road network is not very wide and makes using tractor trailer a challenge. Yes. Or as I said, or you need a shed that you can store TMR in. Because while you're waiting for plants to grow, you can, you could mix up 100,000 litres of TMR, stick it in a shed, and then use it as needed. And as you started to deplete the supply, and I've got another, couple of hours to sit around waiting for the fields to grow, I'll mix some more TMR up. So if you've got somewhere to store it, that's quite useful. But if the only method of feeding the animals TMR is straight from the mixing wagon, you've got to mix it as you need it, and that can be a pain. I went on Lawfolds playing with seasons. I have to feed the animals every 3 days, so I'm pretty much mixing 2 loads of TMR a day. Per feeding day, so every other day. And the wagon I'm using is 22,000 litres, so it's, if you want a good mix, you can get away with 2 hay, 2 silage and 1 straw, and then you haven't completely filled the wagon up, because it's, there's another 2,000 litres that you could put in it, but that's kind of a problem. Now that I've mixed a bunker of silage, I'm putting that in manually, so I'm getting 2 hay, 1 straw, and fill the rest up with silage from the silo. That is a lot of food for 10 days, huh? It's either that or you don't do TMR. On Farm Sim 17 I pretty much went exclusive TMR. The only time I didn't was when I was starting out and all I had available was sort of grass, hay, And I think what I did, I took the time to look at the cow production on Farm Sim 17. And so I loaded up the grass, I loaded up the hay, and check the production. And then I mixed a little bit later. I got a chance to harvest some grass bales and wrap them in for silage. And at that point I could do the basic sort of hay and silage TMR mix. So I did that and noted how much more production you got on breeding rate and what's the other thing, the milk production. And finally I got very late in the year I got hold of some straw from the first harvest. I added that, and obviously up until the point where I added straw, the cows were not producing any manure at all. And adding the straw, increased, obviously started them producing manure. And it also increased production of milk, increased the breed rate, and increased the production of silage. Of slurry. So straw is a good thing to have to feed cows, or at least in Farm Sim 17. Straw was definitely a good additive for cows. It didn't just mean extra manure. It did provide maybe another 5% production. I can't remember. It was a very long time ago that I did this. Right, that's what I understand. Although, isn't it a case of if you've given them TMR, they don't need hay, silage or grass? And we will play, if I start cows on this and I keep going, then we will play some science games and see what's what. Okay. More straw to collect. Yay. Because outside of the let's get the achievements for breeding cows and stuff like that, and let's see how the whole thing works. I will do a play around with the food mixture over time just to see the difference between having grass and not having grass, and that's a thing in it's a lot different, a lot more difficult to do the science in seasons, because during winter animals that use straw need substantially more straw, so much so that if you fill up their if you give them straw on the last day of winter, which is enough for 3 days of supply for them, they will not need any straw until summer, because during winter they use obviously at least twice as much straw as they do during summer or spring or fall. And it's kind of similar with water. During summer, they use twice as much water as they do in winter and fall and spring. So trying to do the science of, if I don't give them straw, what happens? It's a little bit more tricky because, well, it depends if you're in summer or winter, how much straw they need. I think the effects are the same, but it can muddy the waters, the variability of their food usage and water usage. But if you don't give them water, they'll die off. That's fairly easy. Will you keep going? You will keep going. So this side of the field is pretty much done. It's going to turn around and come back up there. It should get up to that telegraph pole and then might reverse all the way back down the field and do the other strip. And then we've got the other end to do, and that's it. So yay, nearly finished field 1. Well, whatever field number this is. Nearly finished the first field. And that did take easily an entire session. I'm not sure how long I've been playing, must admit. I think a good okay, that's been running for 1.8 hours, so we've probably been playing about 1.8 hours, getting on for 2 hours. And all I've managed to do is harvest 1 field. But, it's an interesting map because it's a mixture of small and large fields. With the Alpine map that I took a look at yesterday, everything's kind of pretty large. And from my mind, I don't want the starting equipment, because the starting equipment gave me a harvester, 2 Fendt 500C Favorites, and a Fiat. Grain trailer, cultivator, planter, that type of thing. I took one look at that and said, well, there's 5 fields on the map, and I could probably afford 2 of them. And there's tons of grass on the map. So my figuring was, well, we'll sell that starting equipment. We'll get ourselves, I got New Holland T8 and the full the Lely Splendimo mowing kit, the biggest windrower available, the biggest header available, a square baler, and the square bale wrapper, and I just went to town on grass. Now the premise with that, or the thought with that map is that as time moves along and I'm getting sufficient income from the production of silage, I can start ploughing those fields and either replanting them with grass so that I can fertilize them and increase the grass yield, or I can plough them and plant arable crops and turn the farm arable. But initially you might as well go grass, and that was a good way to start Farm Sim 17. Plant grass and produce silage, because that makes you the best income. I'm done. Oh no, there's a patch. So it was a good theory. I think I got 16 bales, was $25,000 initially, or euros initially. and then the price plummeted, and yeah, it went to half the value, and so I stored 3.5 trailers of silage bales for the until the price recovers scenario. Okay. Big Giant Harvester has completed his task. Wonderful. Okay, start the engine. We have a field to finish. $150,000 litres of slurry. That sounds, I think, compared with Farm Sim 17, quite efficient. I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure it took a lot more. Yeah. You're talking 25-acre field. What's an acre in hectares? I mean, on Lawfolds, I have a lot of fields. Biggest one's 12 hectares. But it's not the majority of my land by any stretch of the imagination. Now, all of those fields take over 800,000 litres of digestate, which is effectively slurry. I think the last year I had sold a bunch of silage at the end of summer, which filled up the tank. I stockpiled about 160 silage bales at the biogas plant, and I didn't use them because I didn't want to waste the potential digestate. And then when it got to planting season, I put all 800 litres out on the fields, sold all the bales, and I think used about 50% of the resulting digestate to finish off fertilizing all my fields. You use a lot of it. I think for the year 5 planting season, not only did I use about 1 million to digestate, I also used all of the pig slurry, 90% of the cow manure, and about 80% of the cow slurry too. So you go through it quickly. Yeah, it is kind of crazy. So looks like there might be a couple of patches at the bottom of the field, but we'll start at the top since we're here. So Oh, we're nearly full. Hopefully we'll get to the end before we are. Because this is really not a good place to be. What's the capacity on this? 8,003? I think. Getting close. Okay, we're over 8,003. Must be 8.5. Nope. That's 8.6. Okay. I need to go park in the hedge. I believe you can drive through on this map, so good deal. Over there, okay. It's 6, so this will take me up to 17.2. This is close. Great. Actually, when I did the fertilizing on Lawfolds for the current year, I put down slurry, manure or digestate, and then cultivate the field and plant it. I was always of the opinion manure wasn't a particularly good thing to put down on the field as far as efficiency was concerned. So for the most part, what I do with manure was I would pretty much just limit myself to using it on greenhouses. And I ran out of slurry, I was low on digestate, couldn't be bothered to run down to the BGAO to fill up the tanks. So it was sort of, well, I've got some manure and a field to do. So let's get a manure wagon and see how it goes. And it actually went quite a long way, which was pleasantly surprising. So manure wasn't, yeah, it's still not particularly efficient, but it is free, and it did actually go further than I expected it to. So not all bad. This bit, down the other bit. Okay, I'll knock the telephone pole over. We'll turn around. There's little tufts around. I might just say, skip it. Just finish that patch along the edge on the right and call it good. If I can use a worker for the end, I can get back to baling. That looks okay. $690. Bit there could take us to 4,000. Especially if I turn the baler on. Try that again. And there we go. Yes, it takes us to 4,000. Wonderful. Okay. A bit here and a bit there, and then we can go and do the end of the field again. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, when it comes to fertilizer, poop is a lot cheaper than solid and liquid fertilizer. So no, she doesn't play farm sim. Space. She'll play other games, but she's not really interested. Again, sneak down the edge again. I left the John Deere in the way. Awesome job, me. Oops. Scratch the paint off. We played Farm Sim and EverQuest together, but not really any of the other games that I play to any great frequency. Oh dear. Please avoid the stuff. Huh. This is where the harvester gets all weird on me. we're probably not going to be fostering for too much longer. We're getting kind of old. We've already modified for the coming year. We are not going to do any more newborns. We're getting to the age where we need our sleep.
Seriously.
So we're kind of looking at school age. What's it doing? It got all the way back there and then it turned round and faced the wrong way. Okay. Help a dude. You're crazy. Wow. I'm going to need a thing to clean my equipment with, because this baler is getting really dirty. Oh, I did install the Total Dirt package. So the vehicle gets dirty with what it's driving on. So if you've got lime down, it gets covered in lime. If you drive through dirt, it gets dirty. If you drive through mud, it gets muddy. So I'm assuming if you drive through red mud, it gets red muddy. Although there is a sort of a real dirt for the Estancia Lapacho mod out there, which I do run since I play Estancia Lapacho as a playthrough on Tuesdays.